Okay, this week is just going to be a review of some more slope stuff. So we're going to do some slope on a graph again, and then we're going to do identifying where slope is at in your equation as well. So let's start with a quick review. Remember that slope is usually denoted with an M in math, and slope is rise over run. Or we can also say the change in x, or the change in y, over the change in x. So we're doing this change in y first. Remember, up is positive, down is negative, and the change in y is second. Right is positive, left is negative. So if I'm looking at this first problem, I'm going to do my change in y first, so my rise, and I'm going up, so it's going to be plus 1. Then we're going to do our change in x, and I need to go to the right, which is positive, so it's going to be plus 2. So now we just have to plug it in. We have our change in y, which is 1 over our change in x, which is 2. So our answer would be 1/2. Now we're going to do the same thing again. I'm going to draw our lines in for us. So the change in y, up is positive, down is negative. Our change in x, right is positive, left is negative. So let's do our change in y first, because change in y goes on top. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to go, so that's plus 5. Now we're going to do our change in x, and I'm going left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Left is negative, so it's negative 7. So now I'm going to have 5, because my rise is 5, over, now we need our run, and our run was negative 7 because we went left. So your final answer would be negative 5/7. Remember that negative 5 over 7 is the same thing as 5 over negative 7, which is the same thing as negative 5/7. Those all mean the same thing. Okay, now we're going to do a couple more, but let's rewrite our cheat sheet. So slope is m, which is rise over run, which is the same thing as the change in y over the change in x. Let's draw our lines in again. The change in y goes first. Up is positive, down is negative. Change in x is second. Right is positive, left is negative. Okay, so let's do our change in y first, because that goes on top. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, and up is positive, so it's plus 3. Now I'm going to go right 2, 1, 2, and right is positive, so it's plus 2. So if we are doing our slope, which is m, we're going to say m equals our rise, which is 3, over our run, which is 2. So our answer would be m equals 3/2. Okay, let's fill in our lines again. And we're going to do change in y first. Up is positive, down is negative. And our run second. So our change in x, right is positive, left is negative. So our rise is 1, so +1. Our run is to the left 1, so it's going to be minus because it's to the left. So -1. So we are going to have 1 over -1. Oops. Which we can simplify, and you're going to have to know how to simplify these. So 1 divided by -1 is just -1. So our final answer would be m equals -1. Okay, here are our last two of these that we're going to do, and we're going to rewrite our cheat sheet first. So slope equals m, which is our rise over our run, or it is our change in x, or change in y, sorry. Change in y divided by change in x. So let's draw this in on our graph first. We have change in y. Up is positive, down is negative. Change in x. Right is positive, left is negative. Let's do our change in y first. Always our rise first. So we're going up to, you guys, with this also being said, if this line went the other way, we could go down to. Rise doesn't mean up necessarily. It means up or down. So we're going to go up to, so this is +2. And then our run is -2 because we're going to the left. So now we have 2 divided by -2. And remember, this is m. And if we do 2 divided by -2, our answer is -1. So we just had to simplify. And that is our final answer. So now let's draw our lines in again. We have our change in y. And I'm getting this, you guys, because this is the y-axis. Y-axis goes vertically, right? So it's our change in y. So up is positive, down is negative. Change in x. And that's because our x-axis goes horizontally, right? So this is change in x. Right is positive, left is negative. Okay, so this one's a little tricky. We have a rise of 1, 2, 3, 4. So +4 is our rise. Our run, however, though, is 0. We don't move anywhere in the x direction. It stays in the same place. So let's see what that gives us then. So we have m equals our rise, which is 4, divided by our run, which is 0. Can we ever divide by 0? We can't. So if you were to type in 4 divided by 0 on your calculator, it would say error. That's what it's always going to say. Or it'll say like syntax error or something like that. It won't ever give you an answer. And the reason why is because we can't ever divide by 0. So when you get this, when it says divided by 0, your answer is always going to be undefined. And if you notice something about this line, you'll notice that it's a vertical line. So it's going straight up and down. So if you have a vertical line, the slope is always zero, or always undefined. So this should be in your notes somewhere. This is super critical. The reason it's undefined is because we cannot divide by 0. Okay, we have one other type of problem we're going to do. These are all the graphing ones we're going to do. But before I do that, I am actually giving you guys the answers to the whole entire quiz right now. I'm going to read off the answers to you, because I just kind of have a feeling that the video is not being watched by a lot of kids in our class. So if you are watching it, that's awesome. You're getting all of your answers to the quiz right now. I mostly just want to find out which kids are watching it, because I need to know if you guys aren't doing great on quizzes because of the way I'm teaching something, or if it's because you're not watching the video. So I'm going to give you the answers right now. So on your quiz, so online quiz 4, the one for this week, the answer to number 1 is B, the answer to number 2 is D, like dog, the answer to 3 is C, like cat, the answer to 4 is A, the answer to 5 is A, the answer to 6 is C, the answer to 7 is B, like boy, the answer to 8 is C, the answer to 9 is C, the answer to 10 is D, like dog, the answer to 11 is D, like dog again, and the answer to 12 is C, like cat. That's your whole quiz. Now, with that being said, I did give you the answers. However, I would suggest that you guys attempt these problems on your own before you just put the answers in. But if you get one of them wrong on your own, you know what the right answer is. Go ahead and put the right answer in and ask me questions if you have questions. Just because you have the right answers doesn't mean you can't ask me questions on this stuff. Absolutely email me and ask me for help if you need help on some of these quiz questions. Okay, so this should be a review, because we did this actually before we got out of school. But when we have equations that are in the form y equals mx plus b, remember we would say our growth is this m, but growth is actually slope. So we're going to be using that new name now, and b is our starting value. So these are pretty easy. You're literally just finding the slope in all of these. So we're going to find the m, which is always next to the x. So for this first one, m would be -6/5. So it's just the number that's next to the x. In this case, we don't have a number next to the x, but this is the same thing as y equals 0x minus 2. Because 0 times anything is 0, so that would make that go away anyways. So it'd be y equals -2. So that means that m equals 0. Not undefined. Make sure you don't put undefined. When you're identifying these in equations, you're not really going to have undefined, because if it's undefined, you're going to have x equals something instead of y equals something. So this one, the number next to the x is -1/3, so we'd say m equals -1/3. Make sure you're putting that negative with your slope. This one would be m equals -4. Then we'd have m equals -9/4, and m equals 4/3. That's it. You're just finding the number that is next to x, and that is your slope. So that's the end of your guys' video. Make sure that you're doing the homework before you do the quiz, and make sure you're emailing me if you have any questions. Definitely make sure you do that homework before you do the quiz. I know you guys have the quiz answers now, so make sure you're still asking me for help if you need help. That's super important.